Today, as we continue on with our biome ecosystem series, we're going to be talking about intertidal and littoral ecosystems, and the who, what, when, where, why, and how this information can better help us to grow plants. Let's get started. Now, when you're looking at different biomes and ecosystems, you want to take a look at all the factors that they include. The altitude, longitude, latitude, how much precipitation, the temperature they get, because all of these factors combined can help to dictate what the individual standard of living or how a plant must evolve over time in order to live in that particular ecosystem. Now, when you're looking at intertidal or lateral ecosystems, they are going to be a little bit more unique because they are literally located all over the world. Now, if you're wondering what an intertidal or littoral ecosystem is, another word for it is shoreline. And it's going to be the area of ocean that is located between the low tide and high tide. So there's going to be a portion of it of the day that is located underwater, and then there's going to be a portion of it located above water. And depending on how high or low the water is going to dictate how that interacts. And they are always going to be connected into either large bodies of waters that are seas or oceans. So yes, even the Baltic Sea or the Dead Sea would account for it because they have their own tidal system that will shift on the day. Now, when you're looking at the average temperature of these systems, because they are located all over the world, the temperature will greatly differ based on where they are geographically located. Those that are in the more northern latitudes, longitudes, are going to be much colder than they are further south located towards the equator. Likewise, with this, there's not going to be much consideration for how high the altitude is, because pretty much all of it is going to be located at sea level. And that's why they call it sea level, because it's at the same level as the ocean. But the temperature is going to be greatly affected based on where it is located on the Earth. And it can also be dictated on what time of the season it is. In the more northern hemispheres, you're going to have a much more seasonality than you will along the equator on that temperature. Along the equator, it's going to be much more consistent around that 78 to 82 degree mark throughout the entire year, whereas in northern hemispheres, it's going to vary greatly based on how close or far away it is with the rotation of the Earth and the time of year, how close it is to the sun or not. The precipitation is going to be just as varied as the temperature is going to be. With you are a little bit more northern, you're going to have a little bit less rainfall, whereas if you're a little bit further south, you're going to have much more rain based on where you're located at, and in particular where you are located to the jet stream. Those coastlines that are going to be located more closer to the jet stream are going to have a much greater rainfall than those that are going to be further away from it. So even though the Mediterranean and North Africa is closer to the seashore, it's a little bit further away from the jet stream, and so that's going to limit the amount of rainfall that it gets. Now, the types of structures, whether it's the soil, the pH, is going to vary just as much because it is located all throughout the world. Those shorelines or littoral ecosystems that are located near the Pacific Islands are going to have very long sloping platforms that are very sandy that can stretch on for hundreds of meters, whereas those that are going to be much further north, like that along the Alaska coastline of the United States, is going to be very rocky, shallow, and have a very steep dive off very shortly. So based on how long or how wide this ecosystem is going to greatly depend on where it's physically located. When you're looking at the vegetation, it is also going to vary greatly based on where it's located. However, there are going to be a few things that are consistent. There are always going to be seaweed, there's always going to be algae. It just depends on the type of material that you find in that area. With the plants, they're going to be more located on the land. However, some can float in and out based on whether it is more of a rocky or a sandy shoreline. With a lot of these plants, though, they are going to have some things inconsistent, meaning that they can survive in low oxygen environments due to half the period of time they're going to be fully submerged. A great example of this is going to be the mangrove swamps located in more humid areas that are going to be consistently underwater. Another thing is these areas tend to be high in saline just due to the ocean water being highly salty and continually washing up on the land. So there tends to be a larger amount of salt, and so these plants need to be more tolerant to high salt conditions. The types of animal in this area are also going to be vary based on where it's located on the world. However, there are some things that are going to be consistent. You're generally going to find crabs, you're generally going to find clams, mussels, starfish, as well as some amphibians that can live in this very major zone where they're going to be fully submerged part of the time and then fully exposed. Many of these animals, though, to help combat this major portion of time that it is going to be fully submerged, many of them have adapted over the years to burrow underground when the waters come. That's more of a defense mechanism, though, so they're not eaten up by fishes or some of the others, or so they don't fully dry out when the water then recedes out into further exposing that land. This ecosystem, because it's so varied, it has some unique properties to it. It's one of the most widespread yet small ecosystems that's in existence. In many cases, this ecosystem is only going to be several hundred meters wide, which is unique, whereas many of the others tend to be many square miles. However, the unique thing is, even though it is not very wide, it is going to be ridiculously long. Some of them can be thousands of miles long, covering the entire shoreline based on where the large body of water meets up with the land. That is what's so unique about it. Even though it is not very wide, it can be tremendously long. And the other thing is that these are going to, as mentioned before, all of these are determined by the large amount of water there, so they tend to be very moist areas. And because there is a large body of water close by, it tends to have more of a mild effect than it is further in the land where it is. So if it's a very cold climate, the water tends to help warm up the area just due to the nature of water being harder to freeze. If it's a much hotter climate, the water tends to lower the temperature and overall making it a little bit more mild one way or the other. Located all over the world. The one question that I want to ask you today is, what is your favorite location for this ecosystem to visit? My personal favorite that I've been able to go to is in the northwestern part of the United States. Even though it is a little bit more rocky, just the gorgeous scenery and that includes makes it one of my personal favorites. So, what's yours? Let us know in the comment section below. Well, this is a very cursory glance and outlook into the plants that we have in this area and why it might be so important. We'd like to thank you for joining this video and look forward to seeing you next time. And now, here's a word from our sponsors. This episode of Yule Acres is brought to you by Yule Acres Grapefruit Naturally Scented Lip Balm. For more information about this product, click on the link in the description below.